debt, mortgage, credit cards, which means you have to work even harder, and you just get trapped in that cycle. So that's what I see the rat race as. Someone gave me a definition of what wealth is, and wealth in this definition was, how many days can you survive without working? That's the real definition of wealth.
Sorry. What's happening here?
Fine. Yeah, that's the definition was, how long can you live for without working? So, if you can't live past a month, so you get to payday and your money's just gone, there's zero wealth in your life. If you can survive for maybe 15 days, that's good. If you survive for a month, even better. And I took a long, hard look at my life and thought, man, I've got absolutely no wealth in my life. I'm trapped in a desk job, hate it, and I've got nothing to show for it. I'm working really hard, but absolutely nothing to show, because I've done everything that I just described. I'd worked hard at school. I got good GCSEs. I worked at my A-levels, but then I was on course to get good grades until I discovered cars and drink and women. So I ditched my A-levels halfway through because I had an issue with going out drinking on a Sunday evening, obviously completely legal, and then turning up for my A-levels on a Monday. So I had an argument with my psychology lecturer, and that resulted in me just walking out. Part-time job that I'd had became a full-time job, and that was it. What was meant to be a small gap to just get my head together and discover what I wanted to do in my life actually turned into a 7-year job. But I did well out of it, because I started off stacking shelves, baked beans on the shelf, and ended up as a deputy manager in a flagship store. So I'd done well out of it, I had a good salary. Problem is that that good salary was spent on stuff, so I was kind of trapped. I hated my job, couldn't move. In the end, it just got to the stage where I thought, hey, gotta do something. Found a job as a recruitment consultant, because I thought, that's really cool. All these people walk around with their cufflinks, their suits. They all look like they've all got it sorted out. I can do that, I can sell stuff. Looks really great job. Did the job, then I discovered the dark side of it. It's being on call. So, you don't get your evenings to yourself, you don't get the weekends, because I was doing construction recruitment. So that meant at 5 AM in the morning, I was getting phone calls from angry site managers. Where's your chuffing labourer that you were meant to send me? Or similar to that. And then I've got to phone around to find out where he is, or send a replacement. That's not what I'm doing at 5 AM. Moved into permanent recruitment because I thought, that's better. I'm dealing with sensible people on decent salaries. My commission's going to be ace, and I'm dealing with sensible people. Those sensible people had good jobs, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. So if I wanted to speak to them to get them more work, I had to call them in the evenings or at the weekends. So that kind of didn't solve the problem. But I'd negotiated myself a great salary, and the commission was pretty good. So I was like, what do I do now? I took a pay cut to go and work for a company called The Best Connection, which that's what started me onto the path where I am now. Because I worked in industrial recruitment, and I had a good laugh with the people that I worked with. That made it nice. But it was back into the kind of labourer territory that I dealt with warehouse ops that are on minimum wage. They basically live for the weekend, which the problem with that is they quite often don't go to work on a Friday. Sometimes they don't go to work on Saturday, and they almost hardly ever go to work on a Monday. So I was having to deal with those problems. I was on call every other week, which meant that I was getting calls from Asda at midnight to find out where people were. Then on a Saturday, this was the biggie that kind of broke it for me. Tesco in Hinckley is a freezer store. It's very specialist with the equipment they use. So you've got to train people up. We got loads of people trained, then Tesco didn't give us any work. Then on a Saturday morning, they'd phone up at 5 AM, 4 AM to say they needed 20 people. So I've got the task of phoning around, trying to get people to go into work on a Saturday morning at 5 AM. Kind of more chance of playing fog, of getting people to turn up. So then you phone back and Tesco give you grief. Where's all the people that we trained? Oh, you didn't give us work, so they moved on. Grief. I decided at that point I've got to stop, because I'm just jumping from one thing to another. So then I decided that I would study at Tamford Litchfield College doing AAT to get a proper career that I'd never had before. And worked really hard for a year. And my reward for it was I got a job at Birmingham City Council And the reason I say it was a reward is because I was able to do day release. So I'd gone from working in the evenings and having no time off to having the weekends back. It was great, apart from when I was on call, but I could put up with that because I could see the finish line. So now I'm working for Birmingham City Council, day release, everything's going well. But things changed with local authorities and there was a lot of budget cuts. Personally, I think that's a fantastic thing because there's so much slack and waste within the system. However, trying to say that to people that have been embedded in that system for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, it doesn't go down too well. But I still like to challenge it because I like to find efficiencies where I can. But eventually I just thought, you know what, I need to do my own thing because I'm not cut out for local government. I need to do my own thing. I think private sector, that's where I need to be at. So I started my business part-time. And I was lucky because you get flexible hours. So I was able to start doing a bit of networking. I joined 4N just over 2 years ago. And I started to build a business. It wasn't massive, but it was all right. It gave me a bit of income while I was managing that transition. Then it got difficult because I got to a point where I was busy, but not busy enough to switch jobs. So I left Birmingham and went to a different local authority that shall remain nameless because they offered far more flexibility with the hours. Effectively, I could turn up when I wanted within the week, as long as I did my hours and got the task done. The problem is that I lost 2 full-time members of staff that weren't replaced because of budget cuts. That work still needs to be done, namely by me. I've got a really senior role within this council, but I was doing far more work, and I was doing work that should have been done by people at a different grade, but I was doing it because there was no one else. That led to a shed load of stress, a shed load of depression. So I sat at my desk, just thinking, this is crap, I hate this. So now I was properly entrenched in the rat race. During this time, I'd got married. Fantastic. Shortly after that, my wife gets pregnant. So I'm like, yay! I need to kick on the notch now because I want to do the right thing. So I'm happy, happy, happy. A month later, in November, my wife has a miscarriage. And that then was the big turning point. Brad Burton will talk about bookends. This is one of them. Because I went to my boss, sorry, my boss's boss, because my boss was on holiday. And I said, thing is, my wife's had a miscarriage. I need to be at home because I need to get my head straight and also I need to be there to support my wife. The first thing that came out of his mouth was, his work covered. And I thought, that's not how you deal with people. The first thing that should have come out of your mouth was, yeah, of course, do whatever you need to do. And then after that, sure, ask if work's covered, but not the first thing. So I decided, that's it, I've got to change something now. And then I took 2 weeks off, came back, never heard a thing from him. He never asked how things were going. And I thought, you know what, I can see something now. I'm just a number. I don't matter. Fast forward a few months, my wife gets pregnant again. And we go for the 12-week scan. Things look great on screen. We get called to the side by a doctor, left in a room, and we're like, uh-oh. Lots of people with clipboards, and they say, because of your wife's age, you've got quite a high chance of Down syndrome. So my wife had a blood test, and when they came back with results, they said normally it's 30,000 to 1 chance of Down syndrome. However, because of a combination of your wife's age and what we saw with the blood, your chance is actually 3 in 1. So your options are have a test where they inject into the fetus and take a sample. Big chance of a miscarriage if you do that. You could just terminate, or you can leave it. We obviously decided that we would just leave it because the other two were quite horrific, especially given that we'd recently had the miscarriage. The NHS gave us so much grief, like we were being a burden on the system because we didn't want to have the test. So I then went back into work. My head was a bit of a mess because I was thinking, that's pretty big. And the NHS gave us grief about it. So I thought, you know, I'm just going to do a couple of bits and go home, explain what's happening to my boss. And guess what? my sympathetic boss was yet again sympathetic and was like, oh, right, okay. Is that it? So then that was it. That's when I put my foot on the accelerator and thought, I've got to escape the rat race now. That all happened around about March last year. End of May, I walked out on my job. Because that was it. I was sat there and I thought, you know, if I don't go now, I'm either going to hurt myself or hurt someone here. Because I just couldn't take it anymore. Like I said, there's depression, there was stress, plus everything going on at home. So I just left. And the reason I was able to leave is because of 4 networking. And that's because of the business that I've built from it, but also the friends that I've built from it. Because they were supportive and I got business from it. So over the course of the following 12 months, things actually went really well because I was no longer stressed because I was doing something that I liked doing. I'd lost that Monday feeling because I woke up on Mondays and I was like, right, cool, what am I going to get up to today? It's such a liberating experience when you walk out of a corporate role that you hate into doing something that you love. And things were going well with the pregnancy. My wife gave birth in October and I've got an absolutely amazing, beautiful daughter who's now 9 months old, perfectly healthy. So my thoughts on the NHS is thanks for that, because if we'd have followed their advice, she probably wouldn't be here now. And we've got a great family. This annual year, 2015, I've got 3 businesses, and I'm probably looking at turnover about £1 million across the 3 of them. And like I say, that is all down to 4 networking because 85% of my business comes from it. And if I hadn't have had 4 networking, and if I hadn't have escaped the rat race, I wouldn't be where I am now. Where I am now is I don't work Mondays, so the whole thing about Mondays and people hating it on a Sunday evening, that's gone because I don't work them, because I spend time being a dad. I give my wife the day off so she can take her mum hat off and just go and be herself. She's going to do whatever she wants. Can't do that in a corporate job. Also, if I want a long weekend holiday, I can have one whenever I want. And I don't work Friday afternoons. That's my decision. Me and Gary were talking just before this about hours. It's so easy when you start working for yourself to work all the hours that you can to get business in. You don't have to. You can just set some parameters and say, you know what, I'm going to work from 8 until 5, Monday to Friday, that's it. And it's easy to do. You've just got to get your mindset right. The way I made the adjustment is I got 2 phones. One for work hours, one for personal hours. And when it's 4, I actually finish at 4 o'clock. I then put the phone on silent and turn it off. Turn it face down, put it in the corner, finished. Then I just get on with my personal life. So that's how I escaped that race. So if you'd like to know how you can, if you're in that position, or how I can help someone else, then I'd love to have a one-to-one or a chat away from the meeting.